Little Johnny and two guys were captured by cannibals. The cannibals say that they will give the guys one last wish before they kill them. They are going to kill them, eat them, and use their skin to make canoes. The first guy says for his last wish, he just wants it to be quick and painless, so they give him poison and he dies. They quickly skin him for it to dry out for their canoes. The second guy says for his last wish, he would just like a pen and paper so that he could write a farewell letter to his family. He gets his last wish, they quickly kill him and skin him to dry it out for their canoes. Little Johnny says that he would like a fork. They wonder why he would want a fork, but it's his last wish, so they give him one. Little Johnny takes the fork and starts stabbing himself all over his body, screaming, "To hell with your canoes! To hell with your canoes!" Little Johnny's dad said, "Son, you were adopted." He says, "I knew it. Now I want to meet my biological parents." His dad smiles and says, "No, little Johnny, we are your biological parents. Now pack your stuff up. Your new parents will be here in about 10 minutes. Little Johnny's son asks him, "Dad, how is it that parents come up with their names for their children?" Little Johnny says, "Well, son, the night before the baby is born, the father goes and sleeps in a tent. And in the morning when he wakes up and he peeks his head out the tent, the very first thing that he sees is what they name the child, which is why we named your sister Soaring Eagle. Why is it that you ask, bear shit?" Little Johnny's on the street corner saying, "Damn fish for sale, get your damn fish here." Well, as he's saying that, a preacher's walking by. Little Johnny says to him, "Hey, would you like to buy some damn fish?" The guy says, "I'm a man of God, you shouldn't talk to me that way." Well, little Johnny says, "Well, no, I caught these fish down at the local dam, that's why I call them that." Pastor says, "Oh, okay, well that makes sense," and he buys some and takes them home to his wife. He cleans them up and he says to her, "Hey, will you cook these damn fish?" She said, "I didn't think that a preacher could talk that way." Well, then he explains to her why they're damn fish, and she's okay with it. So that night at supper, the pastor gets done saying grace, and he looks over at his wife and says, "Would you please pass the damn fish?" His son looks over at him, he says, "Yeah, that's the spirit, Dad, and while you're at it, pass me some fucking potatoes." Little Johnny was in chemistry class, and the teacher said, "Does anybody know the difference between an enzyme and a hormone?" And little Johnny said, "There is no way I was listening to an enzyme last night." Little Johnny changed his Facebook profile name to Benefits. That way, anytime anyone adds him, it says, "You are now friends with Benefits." Johnny's teacher was teaching the boys proper table etiquette. She said, "All right, boys, if you were at a nice fancy dinner with a beautiful young lady, how would you excuse yourself to use the restroom?" Little Timmy raises his hand and he says, "I'd say, 'Excuse me, I gotta go take a piss.'" Teacher says, "That's horrible. You should never say that." Little Billy raises his hand and he says, "I would say, 'Excuse me, I have to go pee.'" Teacher says, "No, that's just as bad as the first." So finally it's little Johnny's turn, and the teacher really doesn't want to call on him, but she has to. Little Johnny says, "I would say, 'Excuse me, my dear, but I need to go shake hands with a very good friend of mine who I hope to introduce to you later on tonight.'" Two friends and little Johnny die in this horrific car accident, and they go on up to heaven. Once they get to heaven, they're greeted by God, and God says, "Welcome, boys. At your funeral and people are going up to your casket, what do you want to hear people saying about you?" The first guy says, "I want people to say that he was the bravest guy that I knew." The second guy says, "I want people to say that he was a great father and the kindest guy I've ever met." Little Johnny smiles and he said, "Well, I want them to say, 'Look, he's moving.'" Little Johnny's mom asks him, "Hey, little Johnny, do you find me pretty or ugly?" Little Johnny says, "Well, both." She says, "Well, what do you mean both?" He says, "I find you pretty ugly." One day, little Johnny's teacher was going over vocabulary words. She said, "Kids, I want you to use the word contagious in a sentence." Little Johnny's raising his hand, and the teacher said, "Well, I don't think he could mess up the word contagious and make that into something bad." So she picks on little Johnny. Little Johnny says, "Me and my dad were driving down the street one day, and we saw this lady painting a fence with a small little brush. Dad said, 'I don't know what you think, little Johnny, but I think that's gonna take that contagious.'" Little Johnny goes to a toy store and he finds a toy car. He takes that toy car up to the cashier and gives the cashier Monopoly money. Cashier says, "Are you stupid or something? This is toy money." Little Johnny says, "No, I'm not stupid. This is a toy car." Little Johnny had been golfing for years, but he wanted little Susie to be able to go with him, so he bought her some golf lessons for her birthday. So little Susie had gotten lessons for about 4 weeks, and her instructor said, I think you're doing pretty good and you can go out and try and do 9 holes on your own. So little Susie went out one day and she got stung immediately by a bee. She tried to keep on going, but the pain was so bad that she had to go into the clubhouse. Once she got to the clubhouse, she was met by the guy that was giving her the lessons. He said, "What happened, little Susie? What's going on?" She said, "I was stung by a bee and it hurt so bad." He said, "Oh, really? Well, where was it?" Little Susie said it was between the first and second hole. He said, "Oh, I thought we worked on this. Your stance is way far too wide." One day, little Johnny had to use the bathroom, so he ran in on his mom in the shower. He points down between her legs and says, "Mama, what's that?" She says, "Oh, that's my washcloth." Little Johnny didn't think anything of it, goes to the bathroom, runs out and goes and plays. A couple days later, little Johnny had to go to the bathroom again. He runs in the bathroom and his mom's in the shower and she had shaved her crotch. Little Johnny says, "Mom, what happened to your washcloth?" Well, quick thinking, she says, I lost it." Little Johnny doesn't think anything of it and he runs out and goes to play. About a week later, little Johnny comes running in the house. He says, Mama, I found your washcloth. I found your washcloth." She said, "What are you talking about?" He says, "Oh, the babysitter was using it to wash Daddy's face." Little Johnny gets on an elevator and he stands next to a woman and he says, "Can I smell your beaver?" She says, "You most certainly may not." He says, "Oh, it must be your feet then." Little Johnny and 2 of his friends were sitting on the front porch. Little Timmy says, "My dad can blow smoke rings out of his mouth." Little Billy says, "That's nothing." He says, "My dad can blow smoke rings out of his nose." Little Johnny says, "My dad's got you both beat. My dad can blow smoke rings out of his butt." The boys look at him super surprised and say, "How do you know? Have you seen him actually do it?" Little Johnny says, "No, but I've seen the tobacco stains on his underwear." Little Johnny asks his dad, "What are you going to be for Halloween?" His dad said, "Drunk." He's like, "Okay, well, what's Mom going to be?" He said, "Mad." Little Johnny and little Susie were the best of friends, and every day at lunch at school, they would always have chicken. Well, one day, little Susie didn't have chicken anymore, and little Johnny says, "What happened?" She goes, "I can't eat it anymore." She goes, "I grew feathers." Little Johnny says, "That's impossible that you grew feathers." She said, "All right, come by after school. We'll go by the dumpsters, and I'll show you." So after school, they went by the dumpsters. She pulled her pants down, and sure enough, she grew feathers. After that, little Johnny was always bringing chicken, till one day he didn't bring chicken anymore. Little Susie said, "What happened?" He says, "It happened to me too. I grew feathers." She said, "There's no way." He says, "Come out by the dumpsters tonight after school. I'll show you." So that afternoon, they went out by the dumpsters. Little Johnny pulls his pants down, and she says, "Well, you not only grew feathers, but it's too late. His neck's sticking out and his gizzards are showing." Little Johnny goes on a field trip one day at school. They go to a state park and they're walking through the forest and they were told to stay on the path, but little Johnny doesn't really listen all that much. So little Johnny goes off the beaten path and he sees this ladder with a sign attached to it that says, "The Ladder to Success." So naturally he decides to climb and he gets up about 40 feet and there's this beautiful woman there that says, "You can either have sex with me or keep climbing the ladder to success." So little Johnny thinks about it and he's like, "Oh, I'd love to, but I want to see what's up higher." So he goes up about another 50 feet and he finds another woman that's just as beautiful. And she says, "You could either have sex with me or you could keep climbing the ladder to success." And he thinks about it and he says, "Oh my gosh, I'd love to, but I got to see what's higher up." So he keeps going and going and going and he gets up another 150 feet and he finally gets up to the top and there's a guy there that says, "Hey, nice to meet you. My name's Sess." Well, Johnny went up to his mom and said, "Where did people come from?" And she said, "Well, God made Adam and Eve and they had babies and they had babies and so on and so forth." Little Johnny didn't think a whole lot about it, but a couple of days later he went to his dad and he said, "Hey Dad, where do people come from?" He said, "Well, a long time ago there were monkeys and we evolved from monkeys and we became humans and here we are today." So little Johnny says, "Oh, wow," and he went back to his mom. He said, "Mom, you told me one story and Dad told me another. Which one of you is telling the truth?" She said, "Oh, little Johnny, we both are. I told you about my side of the family and your dad told you about his side of the family." Little Johnny got sent home early from school one day and his mom said, "Little Johnny, what happened?" He said, "Well, it was show and tell day at school and I couldn't find any of my toys to bring, so I took yours. The one that's next to your bedstand?" Little Johnny, who was 19 years old, was at this club and he met up with this Chinese girl and asked her for her phone number. And she said, "Sex, sex, sex, free sex tonight." And her friend looked at him and said, no, no, no. She said 666-3629. Well, Johnny says, well, I got really excited there for a moment.